Hey, this is Nathan Lively with Sound Design Live, and I want to show you how I'm using Waves plugins on the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Out of This World tour. So I'm on the SD5 here, so click over to the Waves window, and I think probably the single most important plugin I'm using is the Vocal Writer. And I installed this because I had a really hard time at the beginning, really just getting a hold of the main actor, the main singer's vocal level. It's just all over the place. I felt like I was chasing him. And this is while I was still trying to learn the song, so I didn't know exactly where he was going to get really loud, get really quiet. So I inserted the Vocal Writer on his channel. I set the target range up here, and I put the band as the side chain. And what that tells the Vocal Writer is that if you set the sensitivity on the music channel, then what the Vocal Writer plugin will do is when your sidechain, in my case the band, is loud, then it will turn up the vocal more because it knows that the vocal, even though the vocal might be in its target range, it knows that it needs to be louder. And so it's pretty conservative. I think it's only 2.5 decibels is the maximum amount that it will increase, and -3 is the maximum amount that it will decrease. Now, I'll tell you another good idea I had that I thought was brilliant at the time, but did not end up working out. I tried putting the R channel, the Renaissance channel plugin on the band bus, so the entire band, all of the instruments besides the vocals are going through this. And my thinking was that if I used the vocal as a side chain and I just cut out a range here in the mid-range, then whenever the vocal came in, it would cut out a little bit of this mid-range from the band group and make it a little bit easier for me to find a pocket for the vocal in the mix. It was a good idea, but the reason it didn't work is that if there was a little bit of vocal, it would only apply a little bit of a cut. And if there was a lot of vocal, it would apply a big cut. What I needed was the opposite. If there was only a little bit of vocal, I needed a big cut so that he could be heard better. And if there was a lot of vocal, I needed no cut because the vocal's already really loud. I probably don't need any kind of cut. Anyway, I thought it was a good idea. It ended up not working out. It's still in here in case I ever want to try it again. Those are the main two plugins I'm using. I'm also using the C4 and the Vitamin on a couple different channels, but it's pretty mild. You can see here I'm just doing some really basic compression, and if the show is actually running right now, you would see that maybe I'm only compressing 2 or 3 dB, and I can hear it, and it does help with the overall balance, and especially finding levels between numbers so that there's not a huge difference. But I wouldn't say it's real significant. I could probably take that out and still run the show without it. One pro tip: if you ever load your session on the SD5 and then you open the Waves window and there's nothing inserted here, that's happened to me a few times, and sometimes for some reason the Waves session, which is a separate file, will get lost or corrupted or something. You don't have to be afraid. As long as you have an older version or a backup, you can import it manually. So you can hit Session, Import Multi-Rack Session, and find that, where is it? Find that .mrdb file from an older session and just import it. That's just actually happened to me in the middle of the show. I started running the top of the show, realized that something didn't sound right, opened the Waves window, none of my plugins were inserted. I freaked out for about 2 seconds, realized that I could import it from a different session, and I did that, and I was back up and running in, about 30 seconds. So that's how I'm using Wave plugins on the SD5 for the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Out of This World tour.